Dr. Terrorface's minions have invaded the city, and it'll be mere minutes before his Gamatron destabilizer device is brought online. We must assemble a team of heroes to stop him.
And that's why I've compiled this list of recent ER patients.
You what?
Most superheroes get their powers and abilities from some kind of accident, so there must be a treasure trove of champions in these pages.
Or a bunch of people who slipped on banana peels. Here, let me see that. So many of these are overdose victims.
Maybe they overdose on some kind of experimental power-giving drug?
I think Captain Fentanyl might be bad for our PR.
Okay, what about victims of radiation experiments?
You think Skin Sloughing Off Man is ready for this challenge?
Well, someone isn't being part of the solution. Here, let me see that. Aha! It says here this man was doused with chemicals and struck by lightning at his place of work.
Oh, yeah, Mr. Workers' Comp and his sidekick, the Adjudicator.
Yeah, we couldn't afford the premiums. Hey, here's a guy who saved a blind man from being hit by a car only to be blinded in the act.
What's his name? Irony Man?
Well, fine. I guess we'll just let the city be gamma destabilized then.
Give me the list. I think most of these are car accident related.
You mean like the car accident we're about to be in?
No! We were in a car this whole time?
Maybe we'll get car crash related superpowers.
Paging Dr. Cronenberg.
Finally, my gamma destabilizer is ready to destroy the... Ow! Who's been eating bananas?
Welcome back to the all-new Just Enough Trope podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Mikan Hana.
And I'm another one of your hosts, Caliban.
And we're here to examine all the tropes in popular media and track them to their origins.
Face front, true believers.
Oh, wow. It's Stan Lee.
Smilin' Stan here, reminding you it's never too late to follow your dreams. I was almost 40 before I invented the Fantastic Four.
And did you have any help with that?
I had the goodwill and gumption of the magnificent members of the Merry Marvel Marching Society on my side. Nuff said.
I guess it's Quiblin time. Although Stripperella was all yours. No one can take that away from you.
Let's lay it right on the line. If any man is ever to be worthy of his destiny, we must fill our hearts with tolerance. Anything else would be inhuman.
You had a little help with them, too.
Excelsior!
A trope in art or fiction is an element or a plot device or a character type or even a phrase that we tend to see again and again, like Excelsior or having dead parents.
Oh, you gotta get the parents out of there, day one.
I guess you stole that from Walt Disney.
Ah, old Walt. Now, there's a guy who knew how to handle talent. There was no funny business in his bullpen. Those doors locked from the outside.
And now he owns all the characters you created.
What? When did this happen? I'm Stan Lee from the 1970s. Somebody get Roy Thomas on the phone. I gotta send a teletype. Where's JC?
What a revolting development. So I thought we should start by talking about what is an accidental origin and defining what that is for the purpose of this podcast.
Well, we'd better.
Yeah.
There are over 58,000 comic book characters.
Wow.
Who believe that statistic I just made up. I have no idea how many comic book characters
Okay.
there are. I'm sure it's written down somewhere, but almost all of them have an origin.
Yes.
And it's like, it would be possible. In fact, it was in the early days. It didn't matter. It didn't matter that, he's a cop, but who cares? He's just going to turn people into candles and melt them.
Right.
Or like Phantoma is just going to rip, people's skeletons out. Really violent back in those days.
Yeah.
Maybe Frederick Wertham had a point. And so it wasn't really that big of a deal, but they still had origins. And the more I thought about it, the more I thought every character has an origin. If superheroes are the demigods of our modern myth, demigods characters had origins. Aphrodite's got an origin. Hell,
That's
Zeus and Kronos have origins, to keep it just Western, I guess. Susanoo got blown out of his dad's nose.
That's right.
So I mean, it makes sense that they would have origins, but yeah, the accident, like, what do we mean by that?
I mean, I think the way that I think of it is like something that was actually an accident, like some sort of scientific accident, a vehicular accident, seems to be a lot of them as well. Something that wasn't supposed
Texting
to
while
happen.
driving,
yeah,
like Dr.
right.
Strange.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is true.
So, okay. So
Don't text and drive, kids.
So, like, Batman's parents are shot.
Yes.
Is that an accident or is that murder?
Yeah,
I know what I'd tell the judge.
Yeah, I'd say that's probably murder, but you're also...
So that doesn't count.
I feel like that doesn't
If Superman's planet blows up, is that an accident or is that fate?
I feel like it's fate, but you could also argue that it's an accident.
So you're specific.
I feel like.
You're talking about like chemicals being poured. Oh, I got chemicals on me.
Like I got chemicals on me.
I fell asleep by these hard water vapors. Yeah. Something like that.
Something like that. Or, I got bitten by a radioactive spider and...
What if I drank the fruit of the juice of the fruit of the gingold tree?
Sure.
And then I did that again and again and again to maintain the elongated man, Ralph Dibny.
Oh, okay.
DC Comics.
Wow. But if you're doing that on purpose...
Mr. Fantastic.
Is that an accident?
Right, exactly. So, like, it's just like, it's more... there are, it's the Thunderbolt, right? It's literally the Thunderbolt in case of Dr. Don Blake. There are people who are born great. There are people who achieve greatness.
Right.
And there are people that have greatness thrust upon them.
Yes.
We're talking about the thrustees.
Yes, we are talking about
not
the thrusties.
The thrusters.
That's right.
It's just heated up a little bit. And I think that's really funny because I was thinking about just like Greek heroes. I just saw Troy recently, unfortunately. And I was thinking about Greek heroes and how like they've got origins and their origin is essentially a divine nut inside of a human woman.
Yeah.
Because they're all the children of gods, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But none of Achilles isn't like I fell down a sewer and then like a Gorgon was like, hey, you're in my soup or something. If anything, like his death is more accidental than anything else. But I suppose it's the accident of the preparation that his mother, Thetis, the sea nymph, did for him by dipping him in the river, but forgetting that this one part of his leg, his ankle won't be protected. Are her fingers indestructible then?
They must be.
I hate to be like to break a lamp in the Thetis household. You're gonna get that strong right hand.
Yeah, you don't want that.
But like, do you think it's a feat of clay thing, or is it a normal person is plucked out of mortality and obscurity to have this destiny? Because like, I don't think the Greeks are down with that. They're like, no, obviously by right of birth, he's got the god juice in him. And so he's obviously going to be great, and he's going to tame a flying horse, and he's going to do whatever, right?
Yeah,
Actually,
that's true.
We don't know. Maybe
that's
Poseidon
true of
was
the
his
gods,
dad, but we don't know. Yeah, so like, I wonder if this is like a specifically kind of modern thing.
I feel like it probably is more of a modern thing because, like you said, they're gods, so of course they're going to be great.
And it's really modern because if you look at the pulp heroes of like the 20s before the 30s when comics, as we know them, dawned.
Yes.
The Yellow Kid is not going to be a part of this conversation.
No.
Doc Bronze is like, I'm really great and smart, and also I will then do a lot of push-ups and make a lot of formulas and get a gun, and then I'm even better now.
Right.
There isn't any sense of like, oh, I'm a little kid. I'm a little kid. I'm a man who looks like a little kid from Brooklyn, and I just really want to help my country.
Yeah.
And hopefully there's like some steroids out there I can take to do that.
Right, exactly.
And so there's something about like those humble origins. Like I think it is connected in a way to humble origins.
I think you're right.
Or being chosen by the finger of destiny. Not the DC character destiny, just the general idea of destiny. To be given, great power, which then will require you to have
great responsibility.
A kind of obligation. It's almost it's being responsible. Thanks, Martin Sheen.
I was kind of wondering when the first accidental origin in comics was. And I found an article that talked about it could be the Human Torch. Like Professor Horton didn't mean for him to catch on fire.
So Marvel Comics #1.
Yeah.
1939.
Yeah. Or maybe it's also something else that came out in 1939. Speed Comics #1. The introduction of Shock Gibson. Chemicals are hit by lightning, and then Gibson gets superpowers.
Maybe, I guess. I was thinking about superheroic characters before what we know of as, before Superman.
Sure.
Or before Marvel Comics, in the late 30s. And they're mostly just, there's a guy, I can't remember a guy's name. He's like Big Joe or something like that. There's a character who's like super strong.
Sure.
And I don't think they ever tell you why he's super strong. And it's mainly just, he goes around, the villages and hamlets of the Northeast America and helps people out. And then sometimes it's like, oh, you lift my cow up, I put my cow down. Do you know what I mean? There isn't like,
Yes.
It's not, these aren't, somewhere, maybe it's, what's going on in Europe. Maybe it's the end of the Great War. Something sparks the human imagination or the Western imagination. We can actually kind of claim this one. Yeah, France. I know you had comics, but don't worry about it. But no, I'm going to fight against crime, Capone, Dillinger. Maybe it was the gangs of the 20s and 30s. But for some reason, these guys come into existence and then they need to fight the crime.
Yes.
And the police, but not as much.
Right, exactly.
And so it's almost like I don't know, they just need to have that sort of bent, the character that Superman is mostly based on, and this is according to Siegel and Schuster, is Gladiator, this character in a book by a guy named Philip Wiley. And he was a guy who was just, I can't remember what it was, he fell in a volcano or something and he became super strong, super fast, a lot of Superman powers. I don't think he could fly.
Sure.
And he's not a good guy.
Oh.
And so immediately, that's kind of an accidental thing too. I gotta look it up. I think maybe he was just born that way. And he uses his powers for bad. He can take whatever money he wants, and he tries to I'm going to rule the world. What are you going to do? And he's kind of like a King Kong, 6 foot tall King Kong, because all the nations of the world are like, screw you, and they got to try to stop him. And eventually he just, goes away like the Hulk because nobody likes him. And he gets hit by a lightning bolt on a mountain.
Oh my God.
That can kill him. But otherwise he doesn't have these moral, crusades to do good.
Right. And that is a huge difference between the good guys and the bad guys, right? Because there are some villains who have had accidental origins.
There are a lot of villains that have had them.
Yeah.
But I guess the difference between them and the heroes is that the heroes think, oh, I have these powers for a reason.
Yes.
To help people. And the looter just says, wow, now I can steal stuff from museums even better.
Yeah, right.
A lot of Spidey's villains are accidental origin.
Yes.
I was thinking about mythological figures and how close you could get to something like an accident, because everything else is just planned. You see in mythology mistakes sometimes, or things that are consequences of other things.
Sure.
But otherwise there's an order to everything, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Ymir, is the first being or whatever in Norse mythology, and that's all well and good, but once Odin shows up, he's the king of the gods. He provides the order in the organization, and so on and so forth. But I was thinking about Japanese mythology and how the birth of some of the gods, there's the two sort of, demiurge creator gods, Izanagi and Izu. Izu or Izu not my Nagi. And how they sort of created everything, and how at first it didn't go right. Right. And it tells you a lot about Japanese culture. It's a long time ago.
Yeah, it is.
But, Izanagi and his sister were husband and wife, because, that's the way it was back then.
Right.
That's how it was in their family. And Izanagi and Izanami are going to come together to create stuff, but Izanami, the woman, speaks first or whatever, and she's not supposed to do that.
Right.
And so for that reason, like a misshapen troll-like god is born.
Yeah.
Ibisu, who is okay. He goes off. He has a good time. He does his own thing, but and then they do it again, and it's like, okay, now we can make all the islands of Japan and all these good things.
Right.
So maybe Ibisu is like a figure who is sort of the victim of being an accident. He was unplanned.
Yeah, right.
And then also like in the run of correct offspring from those two gods, there's their child, the fire god, Katkutsuchi,
Yes.
who is made of fire.
And he
So
burns
sorry,
his mother.
moms. Yeah. And so
Yeah.
in giving birth to him, she dies.
Yeah.
And so he is basically killed for that, although he still sort of exists and reigns over fire somehow.
Huh.
But he's killed, and so parts of his body become other parts of the creation, and so on and so forth.
Interesting.
And so that's kind of like an accident. She dies and goes to the underworld.
Yep.
And so in their sort of Orphic myth, this would have been right around the times of Orpheus, I'm sure, in Greece when they were coming up with that myth. Izanagi goes to see her in the underworld, and she is now evil. She has been, corrupted by the corruption of the underworld, and she is gross, and she is a zombie or whatever. And so she becomes sort of the goddess of the underworld.
Yes.
She didn't mean for that to happen.
Right.
It's not really a spider bite, but
No, it's not
it's
a
a
spider
flame
bite,
baby. There's the
but-
spider bite and the flame baby. That's the fourth book in the Girl with the Dragon Tattoo series.
Do they get they have kind of superpowers on their own because they're able to create so many of these gods, and then he later, when he gets out from the underworld, creates Amaterasu and
Yeah, he creates the sun
Susanoo.
goddess and Susuyomi, the moon god, and the storm sea god, and
yes,
and he didn't mean to create them. They're all just like the effects of him washing,
visiting his
the
wife.
corruption off.
yeah.
Yeah, so, that's like a comedy of errors origin story, you know, for their universe. It reminded me kind of that. The god Ganesha
Yes.
has an elephant's head.
Yes.
And I think there's a couple different reasons that he has an elephant's head, or a couple different interpretations of the story, but he's not really supposed to. And it's not, the other gods aren't like, cool elephant head. They're like, this guy's got an elephant head.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
Somebody cuts his head off, and then Shiva or somebody takes pity on him and gives him the head of an elephant.
Okay.
It's like, you could be the wacky guy, around the office. And he's like, oh, here comes Ganesha. Characters who were supposed to be one thing and then kind of became something else.
Yes.
The Irish demigod Fionn Mac Cumhal lost his arm. And so for a long time, it was like, well, you can't be the king anymore. The king has to be physically perfect. We don't make the rules. We literally do, but we also don't. And so he was given a silver arm.
Okay.
By somebody or other. And so like a robot arm for a while.
Okay.
And so that was very useful to him. So yeah, things like this kind of exist, but generally it's not. I don't know if it's like a thing where the gods can't be wrong, or obviously they are who they are because, hey, they know what they're doing.
Yeah, I feel like that it is a little bit like they can't be wrong, and they know what they're doing, and they are gods. So
I suppose John Carter of Mars.
Yeah.
Goes to Mars.
Sure.
He doesn't mean to. He fell asleep in a cave. So sometimes that's how you end up on Mars.
Yeah, that's an accidental origin.
And once he's there, the accident was he fought for the Confederacy and then fell asleep in a cave.
Yeah.
I hate black people. Also, so tired, so sleepy.
Oh my God.
We don't deal with that. And he likes red people, though, because he wakes up on Mars, and because of the Martian gravity is lower, he has superpowers, essentially. So is that an accident? I don't know.
I feel like that kind of counts as an accident because he got transported there somehow.
He doesn't get any juice on him.
No, he does. Yeah, you're right. I mean, I guess
Put this juice on you.
I guess it would.
Try this out.
If that counts as an accident, then we'd have to count Superman as an accident too, right? Because he comes to Earth and he's got superpowers.
That's true. Well, then I strike them both.
Okay.
You're
Strike
lucky.
them both from the record.
Yeah, it's so, I mean, like these things exist, but it isn't really until the pulps and until comics that you see this, right?
Yeah. I think it happens a lot in like
It happens a lot in the comics.
A lot, yeah.
Buck Rogers was, well, he was frozen in suspended animation, right, in the TV show.
Okay.
The serial is about 100 years ago now, so forgive me if I can't remember what exactly happened in the Buck Rogers newspaper serial, but I think it was something similar. There was a nuclear war or something, and he lives into the future, and it's not necessarily planned, and he wakes up and he's just rootin' tootin', rock'em sock'em, a guy from the 20s who's now in the 2100s or whatever, so he's got to make his way and figure it out.
Kind of like Captain America a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know what you're talking about. Never heard of him.
Yeah, right.
Or Flash Gordon, a character who, gets he's got a spaceship, I guess, but he gets beamed to like this other planet, and then now he's going to deal with this planet stuff. And so, yeah, I mean, you might be right. Isn't Kazar in the first Marvel comics too? The first Kazar?
I can't remember.
Kazar, I think the first Kazar, who is not Lord Plunder, he's somebody else, his parents, are rich safari people. They crash, and they are, killed in the jungle or by lions. But then he's raised by the lions. I mean, that's like Tarzan, right?
That is like Tarzan.
Sorry, guy that created Kazar originally in 1939. So is that is a shipwreck an accident? I mean, it's literally an accident.
Literally
but is
an
that
accident.
What we're talking about?
See,
Robin Crusoe, man.
That's the hard part, right? Like, I mean, I guess that kind of counts because it was an accident.
Yeah.
But I almost feel like what we're talking about is like more like scientific or vehicular. I don't know. I feel like
Ship's
a lot
a vehicle.
Yeah, that's true. That is true. I guess you'd have to count it.
So we're going firmly in the thrusty, not the thruster axiom here, right?
I think so. Yeah, I think it's about the thrusty.
I'll bottom say that.
Oh my God.
So rounding out the 30s, there's a character called the Whizzer. Let me finish.
Okay.
Let him finish. And he was something like he was bitten by a mongoose, or he had he was dying and he was given I think he got bit by a snake and he was given mongoose serum because mongoose kill snakes, so like
right.
a mongoose extract would kill
clearly
the venom in you, right?
Yeah.
And they combined to give him like Flash powers. He's one of the earliest Flash characters.
Okay.
So that's kind of like an accident, right?
Yeah, like
he's
that
just
wasn't
living his
planned.
life. I didn't want to get bit by this
snake
and then get
mongoose serum,
mongoose in me.
Yeah.
What about the spirit?
How does the spirit get his powers again?
He doesn't have any powers.
Oh,
but he is a hero, and he is a policeman. Let me finish. He is beaten to death by a gang.
okay.
Good story so far, right? And he is like thrown in a tomb in a grave.
Okay.
But he wakes up and he's alive again, and he doesn't know. They don't really get into it because, again, this is the 30s. They don't really. The origin is just how we get to the adventures, right?
Right.
And the racism with his black driver.
Oh my God.
And so he doesn't know why he's alive again. He's very, very badly beaten, but he figures like this means something. Now that they think I'm dead, I can return with a domino mask, in a blue fedora, and I will haunt, the forces of evil. I am like a spirit.
Right.
And so that we get Will Eisner's the spirit. He doesn't have any superpowers. But that is an origin.
That is an origin.
Or do you just mean I have spider blood, radioactive spider blood?
That's one of the ones that probably sticks out the most. But I think we can maybe include the spirit in that.
Nice.
Because I think that's the spirit of things, if you will.
Whoa. Somebody's driving the bus.
I think we can include that. I don't want to like exclude things, but I feel like we have to define exactly what the accident could be.
Yeah. Yeah, you see, and when, we talked about Marvel Comics in 1939.
Yes.
Marvel Comics. And of course, the origin of characters like the Submariner, Captain America, and we even got a different Human Torch.
Yeah.
Who did get his powers through an accident.
Okay.
That shows up in the 60s. So, like, Marvel Comics sort of treads water for a while because of the sort of the early death of superhero comics in the 50s.
Right.
They're, if you want to talk about how did Millie the model get her powers? So we're really looking at DC if we're looking at the 30s and 40s.
Okay, sure.
Right? People talk about how DC characters are more iconic, more epic,
I think
in
that's
their
true
portrayals.
in some ways. Yeah.
Than Marvel Comics characters that designed, maybe the one gut idea that Stan Lee had. Let's not say that. Let's say the best idea that he had is making them vulnerable, giving them the feet of clay.
Yes.
Which dovetails perfectly into giving them an origin, trapped in a world they never made.
Right.
Having power thrust upon them.
Yes.
But as the DC characters of the 40s, you don't see a ton of these accidental origins.
Right.
If we're going to exclude Batman and Superman.
I think we are.
Jake Garrick, the original Flash.
Sure.
Who was 1940? 40-something. He was early. He kind of does, because he goes to sleep next to... I think he actually has to smoke a cigarette. He's like, oh, I'm so sleepy. I'm going to smoke this cigarette by these vials of heavy water, and the heavy water vapors, along with the cigarette, combine to give him these abilities to be faster than mortal men. So that's kind of like an accident.
I think that counts.
Dick Grayson, I suppose, a literal accident, brought him into the care of the Batman.
Yeah, that's true.
And ruined his life forever.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Became a child soldier. And there's a couple other characters, there's like, I can't remember how the ray came about. I think he just got hit with too many rays.
Too many gamma rays or something.
It was like, no, it's like sun rays or something.
Oh, okay.
He tanned too much. Now he's a superhero.
Now he's a superhero.
Yeah, but other than that, you don't see it very often. Plastic Man was a bad guy. He was a thief, and he fell into a vat of chemicals.
Okay.
And gained plastic powers.
Yeah.
And it was like, I'm going to straighten my ways. And also not get used all that much.
The
unless
Joker,
it's a big crossover.
like, going into a vat, was that...
So...
Where did that come from?
That came from the original comics.
Okay.
There was a character called the Red Hood. I can't remember if in the issue where we see the Red Hood, it is also revealed that it's a Joker. I don't remember that part.
Okay.
But very, very early on, like in the 40s, the line was drawn between the Joker and the Red Hood being similar.
Okay.
Because the Joker initially appeared with no origin story. He was just, that's what was scary about him. We didn't know anything about him.
Sure.
But they made that connection very early. Then that connection was sort of like severed or stretched over the years because DC would kind of continually reboot its continuity and decide we don't want anybody to know where the Joker came from. He's scarier that way. Or let's steer into the Red Hood thing because that's fun. I think once the 89 Batman movie came out, it was kind of locked in. Like, this is just what we expect the origin of the Joker to be. Also, the Killing Joke, obviously, was a big influence on that.
And Harley Quinn, wasn't she supposedly the same way, like in a vat? Or is that just from Suicide Squad?
Just from Suicide Squad.
Okay, never mind.
Didn't kill her. She's going to hurt her real bad.
Yeah.
Oh, no, I don't want... I've seen your movies. Jared Leto, that's okay. That's his cult initiation.
Oh, my gosh.
He's in his white gi. He's like, I'm going to hurt you real bad.
I don't want any part of that, sir.
No.
Well, the other versions of Flash had accidental origins as well, right? Barry Allen?
Yes. And Barry Allen... why did I write Baby Allen? Baby Allen.
He was a baby one time.
Baby Allen and Wally West have the same origin.
Oh, okay.
Literally.
Really?
Yep.
Okay.
Wally also was standing next to a thing of chemicals that got hit by lightning.
Okay.
The same origin.
Wow.
I don't know why.
That's kind of crazy.
Uncreativeness. I just like comics have always been goofy, but I feel like the goofiness kind of lingers around Flash comics. At least until was it Jeff Johns started having everybody's neck get snapped or something.
Oh my God.
Flash got real dark for a while. It's still probably real dark now, but like like the Flash was always kind of goofy. So they were like, yeah, it's good enough for Barry Allen.
Right.
Good enough for Wally West.
Right.
It also does that to him too.
Oh my gosh.
Because why not? They're related.
Are they related?
He's his nephew.
Oh, I guess I forgot that.
It's the Flash family.
The Flash family. That's what we want.
Hal Jordan wasn't in an accident, but the guy he got his ring from was.
Oh, okay.
Is that a thing?
I guess that could count as a technicality, right?
I
Because
guess.
like he was chosen, right, by the guy who wasn't in the accident.
Yeah.
I don't know. That one maybe not so much.
You know, well, if you say no, you're getting rid of thousands of examples because really every Green Lantern is the beneficiary of misfortune.
That's true.
Right?
Yeah.
You don't lose your ring. I suppose you could give it away, but like you don't get it until the guy in front of you dies.
No, you're right. I think we should include it.
Plus, you're always like, whoa, I can make this crappy Ryan Reynolds suit. You know, it's a process of being a normal person who is selected by this very strange and limiting criteria.
Yeah.
And then now you must make your way in this world. Oh, my girlfriend's in a refrigerator. Like there's all these things that happen to you. Gotcha.
You did get me.
DC up to the 60s. We said John Jones, kind of. He's accidentally pulled to Earth by a friendly scientist, but he already... I think Martians just had those powers. I don't know what was going on Mars.
Okay.
Or maybe there's something they retconned it. There's something about Earth's field or something like that. But it's not his fault. Like he was sort of pulled away from his
home.
Normal environments. But they've rewritten his origin a couple times.
Okay.
Dr. Midnight. The original Dr. Midnight and basically every new version of Dr. Midnight loses their eyesight, but then finds out that they can see in the dark even better.
Oh. Okay.
Yeah, like the first one, I think a grenade went off by his head, but it's fine.
Oh, wow. That's a lot.
Captain Atom was created in Charlton Comics originally, but he's now technically a DC character, right?
Okay.
I think in the 50s. So, Stan, what are you doing? He was flying a plane very high, like near space, and was hit with cosmic rays.
Okay.
Which destroyed his plane, but had changed his body and made him, Captain Atomy.
Captain Atomy.
Yeah.
Okay.
All three members of the original Doom Patrol all faced misfortune. Larry Trainer, the Negative Man, also was flying in a plane. Colonel Drake was also flying in a plane that was hit with rays. Rita Farr just walked through a weird bubbling land.
That's what you want to do.
And got elastic powers.
Sure.
And Cliff was a car racer who was in a wreck and they put his brain inside of a robot body.
That's what you want.
Those are all accidents.
They are all accidents.
Yeah.
I will give you that.
Unlike the X-Men, who, once again, Arnold Drake, Steven, Spider-Man meme, Stan Lee, Arnold Drake pointing at each other, are very much like the X-Men. The X-Men, though, are all accidents of birth, which is a fun turn of phrase.
Wow.
But I don't think that applies here.
No, I don't think that applies either. Yeah. Also, it makes me feel really bad because their mutant powers and what the mutant powers stand for and everything, being people who are outcasts and that sort of thing.
Well, racism.
And racism.
That's the one thing that Doom Patrol can't claim is that it's a bit of a retcon. I don't think that Stan necessarily had that, and Jack had that as their thing from the beginning, like a very explicit metaphor.
Right.
Because this is 63, right, that they come out. But they picked it up very quickly.
Yeah.
And I love Doom Patrol, but Doom Patrol was never really they had a green kid. They were never really doing anything like that.
Right.
So yeah, the X-Men have that.
Yeah. So I don't like that they have accidental births because that just seems wrong. to me. I mean, I guess they're mutants, so, but it just makes me feel uncomfortable that their births are considered accidents.
It's a genetic accident.
Yeah, I don't like that.
And I'm going to fix that accident. Sentinels. All right, so it's 1961.
Yes.
What are we talking about here?
Well,
Boom. Marvel Comics.
yes.
Stan had a bad night. He's been up with JC all night. He comes in. Jack Kirby's also there.
Yes.
And it's like, Jack, what if we just, I don't feel very good. What if our characters are all messed up and they're all mad at each other and their bodies are on fire from cosmic rays and radiation and...
Right.
If you're Stan Lee and you go like, I was at a cocktail party and I thought, what if I was a fly on the wall? And I could hear what they were saying about me.
Yeah.
I must have been at your employee's cocktail party. They were
Yes.
definitely saying bad things about you, Stan. I don't need a fly for that. And you could be the fly. But then I thought, no, not the fly. Not because that's dumb, because I think there was another book at some other
Company that has
company,
like the
on
fly.
Madison Avenue, who was like had the fly. So he was like, a Spider-Man. So anyway,
And a great idea was born.
you're right. How do you get from there to this guy? It's a kid who is really into science, and then science fucks him over.
Yeah, no kidding.
Like, how do we get from there to there?
I don't know.
You know? How
Yeah.
do we get from like, there's a family. Oh, they squabble, but they love each other. They're going to get in a rocket ship. They're going to go to the moon.
That's right.
They're pioneering spirit, and they're doing it to beat the Russians specifically.
Oh, is that right?
And then they get out there and they're like, oh my God, we stared into the face of the unknown and it has slapped us down to earth. And I'm on fire and I'm a rock man.
And I'm
what
stretchy.
have we done? And I can't be seen. I'm a girl. What have we done? Shut up, Sue. What have we done?
Oh my God. I know. I mean,
Do you think like there's a lot has been written on this, but do you think like Stan was trying to capture something of the, well, literally the Gothic fiction, of his youth, the Frankensteins and the vampires
Yes.
and Draculas and stuff like that, but also the, recently canned horror comics, EC Comics and things like that.
probably.
Because it has a real, tone to it. That kind of ironic, Byronic, I guess, kind of tone to it, where it's like, oh, because Superman would just like, oh, Lois's legs are broken. Give me that medical book. Zzz, now I know how to do surgery. I fixed your
Right.
legs, Lois.
Right.
On the way out of the hospital, a little kid in a wheelchair. Superman, could you quiet, Timmy? I'm going to make out with Lois. Fix my legs, Superman. But like, yeah, like that's what people talk about when they talk about the Marvel Age of Comics, is they're talking about like, Spider-Man saves the city and he's being made fun of, in science
Yes.
class the next day.
Right.
I was going to say Iron Man. What are Iron Man's problems? Doctor
Drinking.
Strange. Well, that was until later. My roller skates need oil. Doctor Strange is like, he's got these amazing new powers, but he can't be a doctor anymore.
Yes.
He's got to switch his dream. And then also, it's not a fun job. Every week, a Dormammu, or a
Yeah.
Shoggoth or something is coming out. You're just trying to have
Right.
some mac and cheese, and you got to take care of Ubik. It's like, what? It's not fair. It's a
No,
really
it's
tough
not.
job.
Yeah. Do you think, like, with the Fantastic Four, like, I feel like especially the Thing is very, like, Frankenstein-y,
Well,
Gothic.
Frankenstein is the Hulk.
Oh,
Just
yeah,
wanna talk
you're
about that.
right.
Yeah.
You're right. He
Yeah.
is.
Spider-Man is not anti-science, but his origin is really anti-science, or it seems like it could be interpreted that way. He could just go, I'm never touching a test tube ever again. Look what science did to me.
He could.
But he doesn't do that. The
No.
FF doesn't do that. Iron Man, Iron Man's Iron Man.
Yes.
I was hurt by weapons. Better make more. But the Hulk is the, if you want to like, peace and love, no bomb type thing. Because it's literally like his life is changed
Yes.
by this weapon, the bomb.
Yes.
and then he himself becomes something of a human bomb, like an DC character, but an uncontrollable force, that can't be reasoned with and is destructive. And then once he's done, he feels bad for it, like Oppenheimer did. We didn't have to see. We knew he felt bad. We knew he felt bad.
That's right.
Then he got yelled at by mean President Truman. But those are all accidental origins.
They are, for sure.
Daredevil wasn't a scientist, but maybe he sued the trucking company. That helped pay for the law firm.
Well, it's a vehicular accident, right? But with chemicals.
Yeah, he's got them all.
He's got them all.
And then a dog bit him too.
Yeah, right.
I don't know.
Out of the way, old man. Oh no.
Yeah, but that persists all the way through. Like, all the guys that we've said so far. I mean, if you want to think about it, like on a long, sort of track, Thor is the same thing. You have a character who he was chasing aliens, isn't he? I can't remember why he was in the mountains, but he's in the mountains and he gets trapped in a cave-in and he's lame. He doesn't have a good leg, and he finds a walking stick and, becomes Thor, and then he's able to break out and stop the aliens.
Right.
So it's like, it's kind of something that's thrust onto him. When he woke up that morning, he didn't know that he was going to be Thor later on.
No, you're right.
And so this I should mention Captain Marvel too.
Yes.
Carol Danvers.
Yes.
Almost immediately after Marvel shows up, there's an accident, where she gets his power and then later becomes Ms. Marvel. And so Carol Danvers, same thing, accident.
Yes. It
So
is an accident for sure.
There's just like this hot run of characters who are all
accidental origins. Yes.
There's other people like Hank Pym just made Pym particles. Fine. Captain America, we talked about it. Like, he volunteered for this thing.
Yeah.
He didn't know that Nazis were going to kill the doctor who created the thing, but that doesn't affect him. It worked on him. There just won't be any more of him.
Right.
Hawkeye is, you're up in a circus. I don't know. So it's like, not all characters are like that, but a lot of Marvel characters are, and a lot of characters from the 60s.
Yes.
And to drive home my point about the Gothic horror thing, characters are always showing up, they're always being invented, but it does sort of cool down a little bit. And then we hit the 70s, and we get the change in the rules of the comics code that allow you to depict ghosts, monsters, and Gothic horror. And we get Morbius, Jack Russell, we get all the literal Frankenstein.
Yes.
We get all of these horror characters in Marvel horror books who have these tragic stories. They are bitten by a vampire. They're bitten by a werewolf. They're cursed by a something or other.
Yeah.
And you see those, I'm a monster.
Yes.
Spider-Man is, I'm a Spider-Man.
Yeah.
But also, sometimes, it's kind of great.
Sometimes it's great.
It gives me a feeling of a sense of worth. I could have 6 arms.
That's true. He could.
And at one point later in the 90s, he does. But it's like a monster story where it's good to be a monster.
Right.
The werewolf goes out and will just attack anybody in the woods, and then he'll wake up naked and be like, well, I've got to stop drinking. But you're a monster in that you have this, curse of responsibility, and also you stick to the wall sometimes or whatever.
Right.
But I do think they're they're like monster stories.
They are like monster
Superman
stories.
is not a monster story.
No.
Batman is not a monster story. He gets to go home and sleep in separate beds with Dick, at the end of the night. And why are they sleeping at night in the first place? They're always like in their pajamas. It's like, why are you guys going to bed? Another day is done. What?
Don't you fight crime at night?
Yeah, don't bats sleep during the day?
Yeah. I think you got this backwards. Yeah, I think that I think you bring up a really good point about them being monsters. Like, and Spider-Man, we've talked about before on many other different shows about how, like, he tries to wrestle with, like, his, being a normal teenager and then just being also Spider-Man, and, like, how sometimes he is failing at being both, because he tries to, show up as Spider-Man, and then he's, like, not there as Peter Parker. And so then everybody's like, where's Peter? Oh, he's so lame.
Yeah.
And
flip a coin, the average New Yorker is going to be either fascinated by him or terrified of him.
Yeah. Like Joe Jonah Jameson.
Close.
How did I say his name?
J. Jonah Jameson.
J. Jonah Jameson. Yeah.
Who's really got an accidental origin?
Who?
Rookie of the Year.
Rookie of the Year?
Yeah, the kid from American Pie.
Yeah.
Breaks his arm, and then suddenly it's like it heals so that he's like has pitching powers beyond mortal men with
I haven't watched that
MLB
movie
contracts.
in forever. Wow, that is something.
What? They shot it in Minnesota,
Yeah.
but he was playing for the Cubs. What the hell?
Yeah, that doesn't make any sense.
I don't know who directed it or wrote it. I'm sure they never did anything ever again. But they're from Chicago. They had a wild hair up their ass. They just had to be the Chicago Cubs. He
Yeah,
was
great
literally
question.
shooting it in the Metrodome.
Yeah, what the hell? That doesn't make any sense.
Kid breaks his arm. Now he can throw a far. We all know how it works. He was bitten by a radioactive baseball.
That's right. We wanted to celebrate accidental origins by looking at one of the most memorable ones. And so we read Amazing Fantasy 15 and then Amazing Spider-Man 1 through 5 by Stan Lee and Steve Ditko.
The most accident of them all.
That's right.
Except for maybe the Creeper. I don't know what he's up to. No, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, this is like the big accident.
It is a big accident.
I mean, the Fantastic Four had an accident.
They did.
But they cleaned it up. Bad Johnny. But they had an entire book, right?
Yes.
And this is just like, what was the story? Like Amazing Fantasy was failing. It was an anthology comic.
Yes.
Still is in issue 15. And I think Goodman's like, oh, this thing sells like shit. We're going to cancel this. And for some reason, Stan Lee, who I described as coming into the office and punching his hat and being like, fuck you, Jack, came in and was like, wait, let me do The Fly.
Yeah, right. Right, exactly.
And what does it matter? If it gets canceled, it doesn't matter, right?
Right.
And then this came out, and I'm just trying to imagine the print run on Amazing Fantasy. I don't know what their print run versus like the audience interest was. They're printing these things on garbage paper, literally.
Yeah.
And there's a deal where, did they have this deal back then where it's like you can tear off the cover and send them back, right?
Oh my
and
God.
get your money back. So who knows how many of these they're printing, but like apparently 1 through 14, it's just like Cowman. He's got udders or something. It must have been all crap, and then suddenly it's like, holy shit!
Yeah, we hit something.
Fucking Spider-Man.
I know.
And suddenly it's like, oh my God. Yeah, it was a huge hit.
Yeah.
To hear Stan tell it. But Ditko won't tell you about it. So
Well, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it went from like, holy shit, we got to get this guy his own book right away.
Yeah. And the story in Amazing Fantasy is basically the origin I think that most of us are pretty much familiar with.
What's crazy to me is if you're familiar with the ongoing Ditko Lee run and even the Lee Romita run, it does, I mean, it just reads like the comic book. Like,
it does.
It's already up and running.
Yeah.
And, no shade against, the Bell Ringer or whatever else is in Amazing Fantasy 15.
Right.
But it just like, it seems prepackaged and ready to go.
Yes, exactly.
And that's why I think sometimes you read something like, the original Superman and he's like jumping around. He's, wrecking the car or whatever. No, the guy's... and it's like, oh, okay, I can see that there's something here, but it's going to take a while for this to like mature into something that like an adult would want to read.
Right.
And it just, I know that like they've got 30 years of comics behind them at this point. It's the 60s,
Right.
But it just springs fully formed. Like Athena from the head of Zeus. Is that an accident? It's not, because she didn't get anything from coming out of Zeus. The same thing about
No.
Dionysus was in his leg. He doesn't get anything because he was in his leg, right?
No, he doesn't.
It's just another weird thing for Zeus to have to deal with. People say he's not a good dad, but he goes the extra mile. Like Nick Cannon.
Oh my gosh.
They both have a lot of kids.
Yeah.
Talk about Spider-Man?
Yeah, let's talk about Spider-Man. Yeah, so the first issue is pretty much what we know, like from like the original Tobey Maguire movie.
Oh, God.
It's very similar.
Millennials. It is, and what works about it is that because it's in an anthology book, and it does get 2 parts, right?
Yes.
So it's like, I think it's ultimately 16 pages, right?
Something like that.
Maybe, yeah, with ads. It works because it's ready to go. If he did just start in like Spider-Man 1, you probably would just start first couple issues doing some action, and then issue 3 or 4 you go, yeah, it reminds me of that time where I was bit by a spider or whatever.
Right.
But we have a small amount of time, and like the bell ringer or like anybody else, we're introducing you to this character. And so I guess MCU doesn't want to do an origin story for Spider-Man.
Right.
But in this case, there's nothing to do but just give you an origin story.
Yes.
And so, yeah, they just get right into it.
He gets bit by the spider, and he figures out his powers.
And you figure out that his spider powers are unrelated to his web shooters.
Yes.
You were real confused.
I was very confused.
Watching those Tobey Maguire movies.
It was very confusing.
No, the Andrew Garfield movies.
Yeah, because he
You're like, wait a minute, he can't stick to anything. No, that has nothing to do with his webs.
It's weird. It's a weird thing.
Wait, what's really weird is, why is his back sticky?
I don't know.
He can just
That
lay
shouldn't
down
be
on a
sticky
wall.
at all.
In Spider, well, he does this in the comics all the time, but in, into the across the Spider-Verse, their butts are sticky. They're just sitting upside down on a gargoyle
You're
or
right.
something.
You're right.
Well,
I don't want to think about it.
that's how it works.
Well, he even does the wrestling match in it, and like,
Which worked out good because 2000s wrestling was big again.
yes.
60s wrestling was big. I don't think it was as big as it was in the 50s. It was really big in the 50s and the 40s, I think, too. But yeah, so it kind of came around in time for them to do that movie in the year
Yeah.
2022 or 2002.
Yeah.
But yeah, he fights Crusher Hogan.
And he lets the guy go who ultimately kills his Uncle Ben, and he feels terrible about it.
And it's a morality story,
Yeah.
which fits perfectly these anthology comics. A lot of the horror and like suspense comics were the same thing. It's a guy it's Gothic fiction. It's Poe,
Yeah.
right? So it's, why won't this guy's heart stop beating? But then it won't stop beating. And then the police, I confess to the police that I killed this guy because his heart's beating. It's Telltale
What?
Heart.
Oh, okay.
Telltale Heart.
The Telltale Heart. Okay,
There's just it comes back around. The karma comes back around to you.
Yeah, no, it totally does.
But instead of like, take him away, boys, we've got this guy's supposed to be a hero, ostensibly.
Yeah.
And he's got to go on if he gets picked up. And so instead it turns into this tragedy that like affects him. And look, he didn't pull the trigger, but he feels responsible
but he feels
for.
responsible for it. Yeah.
And since he's got great power, he feels greatly responsible.
Yes, exactly.
So
exactly.
So yeah, like it's a great thing, and it is something that there's probably a lot of aspects of 1930s Superman that have never returned to the comic.
Yeah.
But there's probably a lot of stuff that has. But like this has been a part of his thing forever, even to detriment sometimes. I think sometimes writers go on Spider-Man, they have no idea what else to do, and so they just dig back and go, oh, what if the spider bit somebody else? Or
right,
but
right.
like all of these elements, this is spider DNA.
Yeah.
This is what everybody thinks of as Spider-Man. Sure, he can get 6 arms. Sure, Dr. Octopus can possess his body or something like that. But they always reach back to this core to continue to think of and create new stories for Spider-Man.
Yeah. And then his first standalone issue, starts off with him being rather presumptuous and being like, I know, I'll go ask the Fantastic Four if they can employ me.
So this is what I love about Spider-Man. Even though he learns that lesson, you can't change overnight. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
So it doesn't immediately become like a sainted kind of person. Like his first thing is like, well, the downside of all this is my uncle is dead.
Yes.
So now I live with my elderly aunt, and rent money comes due. And so what do I do? And so I'm not going to wrestle again. Right. There was a whole part too. They yada yada the whole thing, but he becomes like a TV star in a couple weeks. In part 2 of the Amazing Fantasy story, they talk about how he's been on TV and people know him as the Spider-Man. He becomes something of a minor celebrity, and they're going to go on Ed Sullivan or something like that. But he can't. Now he thinks that that's too. I've got to help people.
Right.
That didn't help anybody. Me shooting candles with my webs or whatever.
Right.
So I want to help people, but I'm going to help people and get paid to do it.
Right.
So I like the fact that he has not fully embraced this savior martyr path yet.
Yeah.
He's still like, well, I'll get paid to do it.
Right.
But I will help people.
I will help people, but I want to get paid doing it. Yeah, exactly.
And so he, has to go talk to the Fantastic Four. You're forgetting, though, that one of his first acts is to save the son of whom would become one of his greatest enemies in the press.
Oh, yeah. J. Jonah Jameson.
John Jameson.
Yes.
JJ's son.
JJ's son, yes.
The astronaut. Who would become Man Wolf? Is that an accident? I don't know.
He becomes Man Wolf?
Yeah.
Do I want to know?
It's the 70s. It's weird.
Okay.
He gets a moon rock.
Oh, my God. A moon
werewolf.
rock, and he's a werewolf.
But yeah, and it's also funny that, we think about how, Batman #1, right? The Joker, Catwoman, it's like, Bill, don't hurt him. Bill, slow down.
Yeah, right.
It's too much.
Yeah.
Hold something back.
Yes.
But a lot of the Spider-Man stuff is already there as well.
It is.
And the character of J. Jonah Jameson, who is unabashedly one of my favorite characters in comics, he's so great. And from the very beginning, he's already exactly what he is.
He is.
I don't think that they had the bugle totally worked out at that point, because he's like on TV. He's more of like a pundit type character. And then, of course, he's got Now Magazine, which I think they kind of get rid of later. But so they haven't really invented the bugle yet.
Okay, right.
But he is this public figure. He's like the bitchy theater reviewer in Laura, the movie Laura.
Yeah.
Where he's like, I could make or break you with my next article. And so he just decides, I don't like this Spider-Man. And whether he really does or not, I don't know. If he knows
really
it'll sell
matter.
papers, though.
Yeah, yeah.
So, but then, it immediately becomes personal, because he's worried about his son, and he's very proud of his son being an astronaut and a hero. But then Spider-Man has to save his life. And it's like, he does have a little bit of personal investment in this.
Yeah, he's not too happy about it. That's for sure. And Peter does figure out pretty early on too that maybe I could make some money selling photos of myself fighting these bad guys.
Yeah, so he meets the FF in his first issue, and I think looking back, it seems like a no-brainer, but really I think it's a genius stroke of synergy, brand synergy, right? You've got this new character people are excited about. People are already excited about the Fantastic Four. That's your established sort of thing.
Right.
And so you have them meet each other.
Put them together.
Makes a lot of sense.
It does.
Getting people to, and then it birthed the crossover, which would plague comics until the present day.
Yeah, well.
But yeah, and so it's a great way to have him bounce off of your established characters, and then also to get a different artist to draw the FF. That could be fun, right?
Oh.
It's not just Jack Kirby, it's Ditko doing it.
Yeah.
And then also you are getting a chance to introduce readers to your character's abilities. Throughout the course of the next couple issues, they'll do those little back matter things where they go, and he can make a canoe with his webs, and he can make a parachute.
Yes.
Here's how his web shooters work. But you're seeing them in action, going up against the 4 Fantastic Four members and their different abilities and the different things they can do, and seeing how Spidey uses his own powers and his ingenuity to counter those things, is a great way to put your hero through his paces, and in his first issue give new readers who is everybody,
Yes.
a chance to understand like what this Spider-Man can do. I think that that's really smart. It's also smart to have a character like the Chameleon be the first Spider-Man bad guy.
Yeah.
If you don't count the guy that shot Uncle Ben.
And I don't think we should.
Who goes to jail and doesn't fall out a window.
Yeah.
And so seeing the Chameleon come in and then dress up like Spider-Man
Yes.
and do bad stuff fuels the whole, who is this Spider-Man guy?
Can
Is
we
he a
trust
menace?
him?
Is he, on our side? Yeah,
Yeah.
It's really great for that sort of thing. Now, 70 years later, I think people in New York have to like Spider-Man, right?
Yeah.
Unless the alt-right suddenly doesn't like Spider-Man for some reason. It's red, white, and blue, not red, blue, and black.
Oh my gosh.
Actually, yeah, I think that works.
I think it works.
Spider-Man's too woke
Oh my god.
with his webs. We'll find a way to
his woke webs.
We'll find a way to make it work. I don't know. I don't think about this too much, but yeah. So I think that's really smart. His powers are still kind of coming together.
Yeah, they are.
It's apparently you can tune a radio into the frequency of his spider sense.
Which is like, okay.
And talk to him.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and then like throughout the rest of the Ditko run, he'll use his web. His spider sense is a little too OP. It's enough that like nobody can get the drop on you. It's basically up to you whether you want to get punched or not.
Right.
That's pretty OP as it is. But then also like, I can just, I think I'm going to look for dogs with, shaggy coats today. I can find him. It's like he's not Daredevil.
No.
Although
he's not.
Daredevil's radar sense does get abused a lot too in the opening issues of Daredevil.
Okay.
He's like listening to the radio and stuff. I love this song.
Oh, my favorite song. It's interesting too, like the Fantastic Four are kind of like, why did you just like come over and unannounced and just like, why are you just like here? Why didn't you like set up a meeting or, you know what I mean? And it's not like they don't have anything against him, but at the same time, he just literally showed up at their house.
Right.
And was like, here I am. I'm pretty great, right? You want me to be a part of your, and it's like, I don't know why he thinks that's even a possibility because like, the Thing is not part of their family technically, but
yes, he is.
He is.
He absolutely is.
Well, I mean, I think he becomes a part of it, but like,
You don't have to be blood to be family.
okay, well then he's family.
Plus, he went to college with Reed.
Okay, well there you go. I stand corrected.
They're college roommates.
Oh, okay.
It's interesting because it sets off a connection between Spidey and the FF that will continue for the rest of their, like, Johnny might have been the best man at Peter's wedding. Like, he's best friends with Johnny.
Okay, sure.
And in the first 12 issues or so, we really see like their rivalry, the rivalry of two, young,
teenage,
horny,
yeah,
teenage superheroes,
right?
Who are, this town's not big enough for the both of them, but they become, lifelong friends. And Spidey's the FF's always been there for Spidey. It comes and goes, but they have a fortune. They have the Baxter Building. They are established. He's just living in a crappy house in Queens and later like a, bed sit in downtown. And so he can often go to them when he has problems, and even became, a member of the Future Foundation, later on, like basically a member of the Fantastic Four. So
okay, so he does kind of get his wish eventually.
Yeah. Money, we don't know, but
yeah, I don't know about money, which I thought was also very presumptuous of him. But
well, like we said, his motives aren't 100% pure just yet.
Yeah.
That continues in issue 2, and I love the fact that these issues are basically 2 stories put together. It isn't until later that they become one long thing. They are, 2 kind of 10 to 12 page stories.
Yes.
And that allows you to bake in 2 supervillains.
Yes.
2 supervillains who would continue to be supervillains throughout the life of the character.
Yep.
I'm not, this would be a different show or a different research project, but like, I don't know how many superheroes other than like a main antagonist who is tied to their origin or something.
Right.
How many superheroes are still fighting their same bad guys 70 years later?
I know, it's astonishing.
It's amazing.
It's amazing. Yes, I meant to say that. But yeah, the first one in issue 2 is the Vulture.
Right.
And then we get the Tinkerer.
Yeah.
So, and everybody knows Vulture because of Amazing Spider-Man.
Yeah. Another character who, and this is the first time, the Chameleon was like a spy. Later on, he's retconned to be like a Russian spy. He's Kraven's brother.
Oh, great.
But right now, he's just sort of like a
Wait,
mercenary.
Kraven's Russian?
Yeah, Kravenoff.
Okay.
He's add
Kravenoff.
off to the end of something. And then
Kravenoff sounds like
the
a like cereal brand or something. I
the
don't
British
know.
Bake Off. That's a Russian show, right? I am Bake Off. Very fluffy and light. Moist.
No soggy bottoms.
No soggy bottoms. Yeah, and like the Vulture's interesting because he's a character who, like Spider-Man, has, if not powers, he has ingenuity, he has abilities above that of mortal men. And I guess he doesn't have an Uncle Ben because he's just stealing stuff.
Yeah, right.
This is the first of the real street level, give me some jewels bad guys.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
He steals like a guy's suitcase that is full of bonds.
Oh, I got these bonds.
Like, what?
I'm gonna go down to the bank and change them in. Don't ignore the wings. Ignore them. And the Tinkerer is weird because later the Tinkerer would become more of also a street level character, but at this point he's an alien.
It's weird.
It's retconned later that he was just
an alien or is he just working with aliens?
later on. It's retconned that he was just later working with them, but he sure seems like an alien. Like there's a rubber
weird.
mask. He finds a rubber mask, of him or whatever.
Yeah. He's definitely a weird dude. So
Yeah. Yeah, the Tinkerer, definitely a B tier Spider-Man bad guy, but a bad guy all the same.
They're messing with their radios, man.
Right. You also see in this issue him being like a science genius,
Yes.
I guess Sam Raimi doesn't believe that a teenage high school kid can make amazing web shooters, but Mark Webb does.
Yes.
So we got that.
Yep.
We've got that. But we see that. We see him having to deal with the logistics of being a tech-based superhero as well as a weird mutate superhero. And having to sell pictures to JJ and like get that money to make the rent and pay for web fluid, and that sort of thing starts here as well.
We also, I don't remember, when is the first time we see a panel that's like half Spidey mask, half Peter? I can't remember which issue that's in, but that's really early on.
It does appear in issue 2. I'm not sure if it's in issue 1, but yeah, that is a motif that that will continue, to this day.
Yeah. And I think it's a really powerful image too, because we've talked about this on other shows. He's like caught in between these two worlds, and like he's just a normal teenager, but he's not a normal teenager. Yeah. And he's got these powers. So, just struggling to keep up with his quote unquote normal life while also trying to be a superhero.
Yeah, and like his friends hating him.
Yes.
They're just like, because his status hasn't changed at school. Like he is the Spider-Man now, but he is still Peter Parker, bookworm.
Yep.
And it will continue somewhat through past Ditko's run, but a lot of that's kind of Ditko stuff. And we know what we know about Ditko. Of course, Stan Lee wrote all of this. We know that, of course. But Ditko is, a guy who believes in objectivism and people, having an inherent greatness to them. Mm-hmm. And he's doing you a favor, to save you. And you're ungrateful and you're a leech, but he's going to do it anyway because it's the right thing to do, I guess, for society. You see that a lot.
Yeah.
He softens a lot once Ditko leaves the book, and it becomes kind of a romance comic under Romita. But that's here. Peter does a lot of stuff like, oh boy, that's it. I'm gonna murder Flash right here. I'm just gonna kill him right in the quad.
Right.
And then it's like, oh no, I gotta go stop the the rhino or something like that.
Right.
So you're lucky, Flash. And as he's walking away, he's like, "Oh, if they only knew."
I know. He's like steaming underneath.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's a good thing he didn't get gun-based powers.
Oh my gosh.
Or we'd have a Midtown High School shooter on our hands.
Yeah, we don't want that.
But it's that picked on kid energy,
It is.
It's that like repressed anger that comes out, only occasionally when Peter's a pretty nice guy, but you push him too far and
he can get angsty.
He loses it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and then like he was gonna go on a date with like Liz, but then like something came up Spider-Man wise, so he can't. And then he's like, "Oh, I'm so sorry." And then she's really ticked off about it, and understandably. And then like later he's like, "So how about that date?" And she's like, "Are you kidding me?"
Right. Yeah. Bridge burned.
Yeah.
Forget it.
And she felt bad for him, so that's the only reason why she said yes.
Right.
Apparently.
Yeah.
Which is like great.
Hey, he'll take it. Win is a win.
Yeah. Right. Exactly.
Well, issue 3.
Yes.
Is
Dr. Octopus.
Yeah, you always love jumping right to it,
Sorry.
right? I like to do a build. But yeah, issue 3, I just complimented the 2 stories an issue. We dropped that.
Yeah, we do.
And now it is a 22-page story, the prototypical Marvel comic book, starring a character who would go on to, I think, Green Goblin aside,
Yeah.
Dr. Octopus is probably one of his greatest
I think so
foes.
too. Yeah.
A character who is also the victim of an accident.
He is. He is an accidental
And
origin.
they have dealt with this in the comics. They used it for his appearance in the Tobey Maguire movies.
Yeah.
That like he is a person who, maybe it wouldn't be fun to share an elevator ride with him, but like not, an evil, nefarious person.
Right.
But when this accident happens to him, I think he probably hits his head, but also they talk about like he's affected by the radiation or something like that. So, it's the 60s. Becomes someone else. He becomes a monster.
Yeah.
He was not this person before.
Right.
And now he's got these arms and he's got this ambition to, continue to do science, but for selfish reasons.
Yes.
And so he's going to go off and also rob banks. The fourth line on all of the Spider-Man villains sheet is always rob banks.
Rob Banks.
Yeah.
Yes. Above all else, Rob Banks. So, yeah. He's definitely one of the most iconic villains. And it's like, it's crazy to think about that he came out like this early. This is just the 3rd issue. And we already have Dr. Octopus.
It's interesting that he continues the kind of weird trend of villains being animal themed for early Spider-Man.
Yeah, that's
just because he's a
true.
Spider-Man, all of his bad guys have to be creepy crawly guys.
Well, there's Vulture and
Chameleon,
Octopus,
Rhino,
Chameleon.
yeah.
Yeah.
But he doesn't have to Puma, that's later. But he doesn't have to be like, I'm literally a floppy octopus, man, look out. I was bitten by a radioactive octopus. He's got an octopus name, but he's specifically a science-based bad guy.
Yes.
And it isn't like you've got 8 legs, I've got 8 legs. Obviously, that was like the spark where
Yes.
the idea came from. But I don't know, maybe Stan Lee, had a bad dentist appointment or something like that because he creates this guy who can counter Spider-Man in a specific way. Spider-Man can shoot webs and tie things up and flip and punch and do all this stuff. But here's this guy who has like, these extendable, unbreakable, very strong limbs.
Right.
So it's another way to fight. It isn't just like this guy's flying. How do I get up there? Or this guy's a little stronger than me, but I guess I'll just have to punch him harder. Like, how does he counter this guy?
Right.
It's difficult, for him. He has to learn a new way to sort of fight this guy. And also, the guy's a genius.
Right.
And often, he's not just fighting him. He goes out and hires gang members and, mercs and things like that. Like, he's usually rolling pretty deep, Dr. Octopus.
Uh-huh.
And so that becomes like an all-new problem. He's kind of a, like a crime lord as well as a genius scientist and a weird metal-armed man.
which is a lot. It's a lot for Peter Parker to deal with.
Yeah, right. Because he's got homework.
Yeah, he's got homework.
Yeah.
And now this guy with 8 limbs is coming after him.
And Peter initially beats him by like using his own scientific kind of knowledge because he can't counter these arms and he can web them, but they're very strong. They can tear the web. And so it's a little weird. Maybe Stan Lee didn't, wasn't the best in chemistry class, but, Peter comes up with like this, he mixes together a solvent basically that will like kind of melt the arms. So he waits till the guys grabbed him and then he pours the solvent on the arms. So 2 of the arms are kind of fused together.
Yeah, right.
So he's like, good. Okay. That reduces his mobility. But then he just starts like hitting him with like double axe handles with the fused arms.
Right.
And then Spider-Man's like, oh, geez, I didn't think this through at all.
Yeah.
And like the torch, I think it's funny that the torch was supposed to help out in this one, but he had the flu. So
he wasn't feeling well. The flames were out. So,
Yeah. So I got a cold.
Yeah.
I'm
no
not going to be able
flames today.
to. I did that show at the high school, and now I can't stop Dr. Octopus. So sorry about that. To talk about issue 4?
Yeah, let's talk about issue 4.
Let's just go right through all the Sam Raimi movies.
Yeah.
Look, I'm
pretty
glad.
much.
It's one of the reasons that I think the Sam Raimi movies work so well is that they didn't like try to do a Moreland movie or something like that, or a Madam Web movie, for instance.
Yes.
We just go right into Sandman.
I know.
No Venom though.
No Venom.
And like the Sandman is interesting because he is, we don't really know his deal. I don't think it's really until later that we give more of a relatable background to him. But he does get an origin story.
Yes.
An accidental origin story.
He has an accidental origin.
Where he crawls into an atomic testing site or a particle accelerator or whatever. And you get he fights Spider-Man and he robs banks. But I don't know. You don't get the sense that he's like an evil person necessarily.
No, you don't.
And when Spider-Man is fighting him, he's trying to figure out how a man made of sand works. And Sandman's like, come here, check this out. Watch, go ahead. Try and punch me. Yeah, it goes right through. Pretty cool, right? And punch me again. Oh, it's super hard, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I got all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
Like, he's not like, they're not in pitched battle. He's not trying to like choke the life out of him. He's just like, yeah, I can turn into sand. Pretty cool, right?
Yeah, right?
But Spider-Man has to like push the issue. Maybe if he would just, go, hey, why don't you stop doing this? Or let's team up. We could be Spider-Man and Sandman or
there
something.
You go. Then have a fun team up.
He does become an anti-hero later.
Yeah. Like, how does he become an anti-hero?
He becomes a good guy. I think he's a reserve Avengers member.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. That's pretty interesting.
Yeah, so that was always kind of baked in to the story, I think.
Well, and in the Raimi movie, he says he forgives him, and then he like just goes away.
He says, "I forgive you."
Yes.
That's how long that takes. There's also like the return of some sort of practical elements in this. The entire thing is practical because, first of all, he's having tried to fight a man made of living sand.
Yeah, right.
But in his first encounter, they don't even get to finish it because he trips and like rips his mask. And he's like,
oh, yeah,
oh, crap,
right.
I've got to go. I can't let anybody see my face.
Yes.
And so he has to just run away from the fight, basically.
Yeah.
No winner of that fight, or maybe the Sandman just wins. And then later on, he's like watching TV and hearing about the Sandman tearing up the town. And he's like sewing his mask. I put my finger on. It's like the practical aspect. Reed Richards would never have to put up with this kind of crap.
No, of course
He'd
not.
just go to the closet and get another Unstable Molecules costume and put it on and be ready to go. Also, people just know who Reed Richards is. He doesn't have a secret identity.
He doesn't have a secret identity.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I feel like Spider-Man is one of the superheroes who really juggles with that the most.
And I think this is the issue where he gets the mask fixed, but then Aunt May comes in and he puts a bathrobe on. And
yes.
She's like, Peter, are you okay? And he's like, oh, I just feel a little sick. And she's like, oh, you need to lay down. I'm going to make you some soup. And he's like, I got to get out of here and go fight the Sandman. But he has to stay there all night because she dotes on him all night, so he's never able to leave and go fight the Sandman.
Yes. That's a great moment.
Yeah, and that culminates in, I don't know, it's in Midtown, so maybe it's a crossroads where all the bad guys end up.
I guess so.
It's a little weirder in the Andrew Garfield movie where the lizard's at the high school for some reason.
I don't know why the lizard's at the high school.
But yeah, Sandman just kind of wanders into Midtown High while the lecture's being given, and Spider-Man's like, oh crap, I gotta take care of this right now.
Yeah, exactly.
And so, of course, he runs out, and everybody's like, oh, Peter Parker's a coward.
Yep. Right.
When even the old teacher's standing up to this guy. And then he goes and fights him in the basement, and it's a really it's a showcase for his ingenuity in that he has to come up, both of them, because Sandman keeps coming up with all these new things that you imagine that he's never done before. He's being challenged by Spider-Man as a combatant. Spider-Man is trying to figure out how to stop him from doing all these things. And then finally, it's so 60s comics, but I love it. He has a high-powered vacuum that he sucks the Sandman into.
Yes.
And it's like, that's a high-test bag, so he should be trapped. So thanks for that line. So we know that the Sandman is stuck in this bag.
Yes.
The vacuum bag.
Exactly. And then he realizes, oh, I didn't take any pictures.
I didn't have any pictures of the fight.
So he throws some sand around him. Takes some pictures of that. I'm like, are you serious?
He just throws sand in the air and then it does a flip.
Yeah.
And he's like, this is probably not unethical, right?
Yeah.
I did fight him.
Yeah, right, exactly. I'm not going to get him out of the bag.
Of the fight.
Yeah. I got him in the bag. I'm going to keep him in the bag.
Yeah, I love that so much.
Yeah, no, it's great.
Yeah, I mean, I fought him.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so like that's just all those ideas we've been talking about coming home. Baby needs some money here. The material needs of a Spider-Man, but also the need to fight the bad guys and deliver justice, but also the continuing circumstances of the secret identity he must maintain for his aunt, for his classmates.
Yes.
I think Jameson also shows up somehow. He ends up at the school and he's yelling at Spider-Man. You don't know that he's not in league with the Sandman.
Yeah, right.
He probably just threw some sand up in the air and threw a punch. Thanks for these pictures, Parker. They're great.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
And then to be a real superhero in the Marvel Universe,
you
have to face Dr. Doom.
You do.
Which he does in issue 5.
Yes, which is great. That's another Fantastic Four connection there as well.
It is. And I think that Dr. Doom, had fallen to his presumed death the last time that he was in Fantastic Four, like Fantastic Four 12 or 13 or something like that.
Oh, my.
And so this is him showing up. It's comics, but this is him showing up for the first time since then, gracing the pages of Spider-Man. And I like how Dr. Doom, is a pragmatic man.
Yeah.
So at first he's like, I'm Dr. Doom. I got a lot of great plans, and you could be a part of these plans.
Yes.
And Spider-Man's just like, I don't know. I kind of work alone. You seem kind of weird. You got a lot of weird traps and gadgets and gizmos in here.
Yeah.
I think I'm just going to web you up.
Yeah.
And, of course, he's webbed up one of his Doom bots.
Yes.
A duplicate. And so now you know Doom shall be your foe.
Yes.
And I will destroy Spider-Man, whether or not Peter Parker is Spider-Man.
Right.
We got a classic switcheroo in this episode.
Do.
This is so great.
I know.
Did they do this in any of the movies?
I don't think they did.
Because I want to see Tony Ravioli in the Spider-Man costume.
Yeah.
That feels familiar to me. I haven't watched those movies in a while.
I don't feel like they've done that.
Okay,
but
well, they got to do this.
I feel like they should do it.
Although I guess he doesn't know who Spider-Man is anymore, but whatever. Flash decides to play a prank.
Yep.
And in this world of the 1960s Marvel New York, you can just get costumes anywhere.
Yeah, apparently.
The best stocked costume stores in town.
Yes.
And so, Flash goes to a costume shop and gets a
Spider-Man costume.
Real-to-life, accurate Spider-Man costume. Just as Dr. Doom is flying by in his Doomcopter.
Yes.
And says, my foe, Spider-Man. I will knock him out with gas and bring him back to the lab.
Yes.
For some reason.
for reasons.
He's going to hold it because he knows that, the Fantastic Four has been seen with Spider-Man, and so he's going to hold Spider-Man captive. Fantastic Four, surrender yourselves to me or the
Yes.
Spider-Man dies.
Yes,
I just
right.
imagine like Ben Grimm watching TV and being like, switches the channel to football. Don't know that guy.
Yeah, I could see that happening too, especially after like he invited himself over and asked to be a part of their team.
So Spider-Man's job is to take care of this job, take care of getting his bully, his regular
Yes.
life enemy back
Yes.
from Doctor Doom, and to fight Doctor Doom.
Which is no small feat.
That's what we're talking about here.
Yeah, exactly.
And he basically gets it done, or at least the Fantastic Four. He lasts 12 rounds against
Yes.
Doctor Doom until the FF shows up,
Yes.
which is like a rite of passage or a test of mettle of a young superhero.
Yeah, he did a pretty good job. So.
And he saves Flash and thinks, well, things are going to be different now. And instead, Flash is more popular than ever.
I know.
He had an adventure.
I know. And he's bragging, and Parker is just like livid, and he's like, I just have the worst luck. And
He's got the Parker luck.
Yep. And he's not happy about it, like, at all. But, what are you going to do? He can't say anything.
Right.
He can't say, I'm Spider-Man. And who would believe him even if he did,
Right.
So.
Something that we understand.
Yeah.
We don't need for the character to literally show up at high school party in costume, ready to go in, and
No, we
it's
don't.
a little much.
It is a little much.
The only thing I can think of is we needed to see Liz's house for some reason, or he needed to see her house to know.
I don't.
So when he shows up later, but he shows up, she drives him to the. He never. Anyway, I don't know why we needed to go to Liz's house before.
Because there's a party.
The prom.
And we need to just go to her house. I don't know. Maybe they got the location and they're like, we're going to use it.
That's his. We don't have. There's no Crusher Hogan in the MCU Spider-Man, but that's his moment of like, I could use this for personal gain. But it's so much lower stakes.
Yeah.
Than I'm not going to stop this robber because screw you.
Right.
But anyway, yeah, I don't know. The MCU Spider-Man, can it be saved?
I mean,
it's so messed up at this point.
It's kind of messed up at this point. I don't know. I kind of want to rewatch the other two movies. We rewatched the first one not that long ago, but I kind of want to rewatch the other two and see what I think about them.
Oh, I'm Spider-Man. I'm Spider-Man. oh man. Oh, it's tough to be Spider-Man.
Yeah, well, it is tough to be Spider-Man.
Oh man. Tony Stark and Nick Fury are my best friends. They give me a lot of money. Oh, how am I gonna be Spider-Man?
I think it's pretty good.
Oh no, now I got Dr. Octopus as my friend. Oh, it's hard to be Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Willem Dafoe's trying to kill me. I never even met the guy.
I know.
Spider-Man.
We explored accidental origins and where they came from and why they're so popular and prevalent. And I think we came up with some good answers there. And I think, Spider-Man...
It's all about the thrusting.
It's all about the thrusting, man. Like, the original Spider-Man comic run is amazing. And I think it was really good to read about that.
Yeah.
For the show as well.
You can probably get these. I would recommend. I've made it to Morbius. So that's
Okay.
past 100, right?
Probably.
And I want to eventually read all like 750 issues now.
Wow.
There's a lot of it. Yeah, Amazing Spider-Man issues. But I've read the first 100 issues. I'm pretty sure you can get them in like a digest format, like a phone book or something.
Okay.
Or, Marvel Unlimited or, the Criterion Collection, however you want to do it.
Right.
It's absolutely worth it. You'd think Ditko being, such a great artist and co-writer and co-plotter, when he leaves the book, wow, it's going to fall apart.
Right.
It doesn't.
That's great.
Morbius aside, it is continually entertaining. And, when Romita comes on, I mean, it's John Romita.
Right.
So, yeah, it is absolutely a great read if you want to see where, the history of Spider-Man came from, including Green Goblin,
right.
Death of Gwen Stacy, all that stuff. That's all there. And it's a great time.
That's awesome. What's coming up on the next Just Enough Trope?
On the next episode of Just Enough Trope, we'll be talking about the Amen Break.
The Amen Break?
The Amen Break.
Okay. What does that mean?
We're not going to spoil it now. It's a musical episode.
Okay.
And we'll be talking about the 8 bars, right? The most recognizable, sampled 8 bars of music, or specifically in this case, percussion.
Okay.
In popular modern music. It is everywhere. It is the core of basically everything that you hear now. You want to talk about DNA?
Sure.
It is the core DNA of modern popular music.
Okay. Awesome. I'm looking forward to that.
Another instantly banned from YouTube episode next time on Just Enough Trope.
That's it for this week. We'll be back in 2 weeks with another episode. In the meantime, if you want more talk about pop culture and tropes, join us on our Discord. We've got a link in the show notes. It's free, and it's a gateway to a cornucopia of conversations about your favorite pop culture topics.
We've got social media accounts as well on Facebook and Instagram. And for now, X, but boy, it just seems more and more like a good idea to not do that anymore. But who knows what'll happen in the future. But wherever we are, you can go to Just Enough Trope, follow us, and say hello.
If you really like what you hear, why not consider becoming a patron of the show? Go to patreon.com/justenough-trope and become a patron producer today. Each month we hold a patron producer poll where our patrons get to decide what we talk about on our producer shows. You're also helping each and every episode of Just Enough Trope to make it to release, and we can't do it without you. So sign up today at patreon.com/justenough-trope.
And we've got a coffee as well. Delicious. But we've also got a website, coffee, ko-fi.com/justenough-trope. If you don't want to join our Patreon, that's fine. But if you want to leave a little tip and say, hey, you're doing a good job, buy us a coffee at ko-fi.com/justenough-trope.
From the Just Enough Trope studios, this is Mika for Cal signing off and saying, keep the geek fires burning.